Yeah, welcome back. Thank you so much for being with us again today. We have Sheri Ryland, our resident therapist, with us again today. Great topic to talk about. I think it's one that impacts everybody. We want to talk about, the overarching concept of anxiety, and we all feel it in all kinds of different ways. I was talking with Sheri earlier on a break, and how there were a lot of years in my life I didn't have a lot of anxiety. And then in the last 5 years in grief, the grief produced so much huge anxiety that I had to figure out how to work with. And the byproducts of anxiety being these narratives that play in our heads, and sometimes we believe them, and they're false narratives. And then, the tag-ons of, oh my gosh, the imposter syndrome, which just recently I had a big issue with that, with a professional thing I needed to do. So Sheri, thank you for being with us today, helping us dissect some very important and difficult mental
Yeah.
issues that we face.
Well, I'm really glad to be here today to discuss that, because that really affects so much of our lives. Anxiety is a
Oh, gosh.
huge thing. And I was telling somebody earlier about how anxiety is something that's actually easier to work with than, say, true depression. There's more skills to deal with. There's more ways to work through the thought process, the physical reactions to things, than there are. Depression is so much more of a chemical thing, and anxiety is about tools.
What are some of those tools?
Being able to take a breath, and I know
Oh,
that I use that for everything. But if you can't take a breath, you're not able to stop for a second. You're not able to think clearly. Everything's just rolling. The physical feelings are rolling. The thoughts are rolling. Everything is just running over like a train, right? So if you're able to take that breath and clear your thoughts, and the vagus nerve is activated then, and you're able to actually
listen, in the last 5 years and all the anxiety coming out of the grief of my husband's death, learning all kinds of tools with breath work has been essential to
absolutely.
me being able to survive with, and walk out of some of that grief. And I mean, sometimes it's like you go to the emergency room in your body,
Yes,
and that breathing does do something so powerful to just reset,
it does.
to let it go. And then when you
Right.
have a few key words that you can say as you breathe,
Yes,
that
exactly.
that reset you. It does for me. That
Right.
breath work has been so powerful in, kind of letting it go,
Right.
calming me down, recentering my head so that I'm thinking straight.
Right. And you were saying about the narrative, right? The narrative is really what's happening in your head that's telling you that the house is on fire, and there's no fire.
Yeah.
Right? There's no fire, but we're reacting to it that way because that's how our body is wired. We're wired for survival, right?
Mhm.
So we don't really want to just survive, right? We want to be able to thrive, and we want to be able to
Absolutely.
enjoy life,
Yeah.
and not feel like we're going to get run over by a truck any
Mhm.
minute. But when we're in fight or flight, we're stuck in that fear. The world is telling us that there's a fire, that there's something scary and really bad in front of us, and our body is reacting to survive. So if you're able to get yourself in that, now change that narrative of, no, there's no fire here, you're safe. My body can now start to feel what it feels like to take a real breath, to really understand what's happening with my body, that, oh, I can look around now. I can see there's no fire. I can
Right.
see there's actually nothing right around me outside of my thoughts that's telling me there's some danger. So
Listen.
rewriting that,
Yeah.
right? So we also talked about earlier about the idea about being boss women, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if you think about the idea about all that entails, the narrative in our head, whether you're good enough to do that, whether people are going to take you seriously, are you too young, are you too old, are you, all that pops in your head and puts you in that, I have to be on the defensive. I have to prove myself.
Yeah.
And
That's no
if
fun.
I'm not proving myself, and I can't come to the plate and give what I think is expected of me, that's going to cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of that imposter syndrome of thinking,
Oh my
oh my
gosh.
God,
It's so hard sometimes.
is anybody going to really look at me and say, she doesn't know what she's talking about?
I mean, I just went through something where my imposter syndrome was living large.
Mm.
I was asked to be a contributor to a documentary, and when I inquired, who else is contributing to this, it was all these people who are just at the top of the food chain, and in the healing arts, and as therapists and brain searchers and researchers, and I was like,
Wow, that's a
why?
lot to compete with,
Why?
right?
Why? Well, I can't. It's
Okay,
like,
so
why am I doing this? Why? Because there is no competition there. Do
exactly.
I have anything to offer? And the director was really amazing. He really walked me through this, and he just put me in a place of saying, your journey is valuable not because it's done and it's perfect. Your journey is so valuable in the middle, in the messiness. And he just
Absolutely.
gave me, he just validated, okay, you have a place here. It's not over here, with these people with
Right.
great big platforms and all this research, but this is valuable too.
Exactly.
So he reset me.
I love that, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody has a piece of that puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yours is important to validate your experience because those people are all doing work to figure out how to affect your experience.
That's right. That's
So
right.
if you didn't have an experience, they don't have a job.
Well, a good way to look at it.
So if we change our perspective is everything. So if I have a view that the world is against me or that I'm not good enough, and that's my perspective on the world, I'm never going to be because I can't fight that perspective.
Yeah, you live what you
Yeah.
believe.
So that's where anxiety lives, right? And so if I feel I'm not good enough to do this, I'm going to constantly be in fear of being found out. And so then I start to sabotage myself. I start to say that, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm not good enough. Oh my gosh, the business not making as much money this month. Maybe people aren't going to come back. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
And having a relatively new business myself, am I making the right decisions?
Mm-hmm.
Am I do my words make sense? Am I saying things to my clients that when they leave, they're like, oh, that lady doesn't know what the hell she's talking about? Or, you know what, I felt good. And sometimes I feel like the words just come out. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to handle
Where are
this
the
one.
words?
Where are the words? Why'd you fail me today? But it's not about always having to have the answer. It's trusting that you will get to it. You'll get to that point. Because otherwise, if we don't have trust, then then that's where anxiety comes from. I have to trust in myself to follow the path that I've laid in front of me and to know where I need to change the path.
Yeah, and just in wrapping this up, I want to say, when you said earlier, it's we're on repeat with it in a way, but to take a breath. When
Mm-hmm.
you've got that anxiety, you've got the false narrative running in your head of what you are or what you aren't. The other thing I just want to insert in that taking a breath is to be gentle with yourself. To have
Mm-hmm.
some self-compassion and go, okay, I really feel like crap right now, but I believe in myself. I'm doing something I want to do. As you
Right.
shift the narrative, shift the criticism, the self-criticism, and
Right.
find that gentler path, that self-compassion, that
Right.
self-love, because that starts to rewrite the narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely rewrite the narrative. That's the important piece right there.
Rewrite the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
So appreciate you and all that you bring to the Soul Talks podcast.
Thank you.
And
That was
thank
fun.
you all for being with us today. I hope this was helpful. It certainly is to me. So we'll see you next week.